All right. Good morning, scholars. Good morning, good morning. So we are going to continue making our uh, learning about our characters in Greek mythology. This is where we left off yesterday with Zeus and Poseidon. Um, and today's objective is the same. I can explain how and why Greek myths are fiction using examples from the text. So what I realized yesterday is I had forgot to share this with you. Here we go. So this is going to be my list. So hopefully this will be easier for you to see versus a chart behind me. So your paper should look like this. On one side, you should have a spot for the god's name that we're learning about. And on the other side should be, you should draw a line down the middle, and then you should have a spot on the other side where we can keep notes about the characters so we can remember all the characters that we're learning about. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read the information for this so we can get that down on the chart. So Cyrus, remember, is Leonidas' father, and they're on their way to Mount Olympia for the celebration of the Greek gods. So that's where we left off. So here we go. Cyrus continued on, saying, well, as I said before, Zeus is the leader of all gods and protects all of us here on earth. So let's stop right there, because what I heard the author say was two things. He was the leaders of all gods and goddesses and protector of all on earth. Okay. He has a voice like rolling thunder and controls the wind, rain, and lightning, which he also uses as his weapon. So there's some more details about him. So what did you hear? I heard that he controls the wind, rain, and lightning. So let's go ahead and add that to our list. Controls wind, rain, and lightning is a big word, but we can chunk it. Lightning. Here we go. L-I-G-H. Light. And the lightning controls wind, rain, and lightning. And he also said something else. The author also said that he uses these for what? You remember? He also uses these as his weapons. All right. Then we also learned about this gentleman right here and his trident. We talked about his trident yesterday. So this Greek character's name is Poseidon. Let me go back to the list. Here we go. P-O-S-E-I-D-O-N. Oh, typo. P-O-S-E-I-D-O-N. All right. And it says, he controls the sea and rules over it with a trident. When he strikes the ground with his trident, the earth shakes, and when he strikes the seas with it, the waves rise up as tall as mountains. So there's a lot of information right there. So we know that, would you say that his trident is important to him? And why? Why would you say his trident is important to him? His trident is important. It helps him to have his special powers, right? That's where his powers is. So let's spell the word trident. Trident. Trident has a trident. Has a trident that when hits the ground, what does it do? The ground, it hits the ground, it shakes. And in the sea or the ocean, that's another word for ocean, waves rise up like mountains. All right. So now we've got our information for this. So now moving forward, as I'm reading the new slides, I want you again to be thinking, what in that, first of all, two things that you need to be thinking about. Who is the new God and what kind of powers does that God have, so we can keep track of it in our list? And then thinking about our objective. what in that Miss G just read, that the author just wrote, what in that is letting me know that this is fiction and that it's not real? Okay, so those are the two things I want you thinking about as I'm reading to you. All right. This is our new friend right here. Just looking at the picture, it looks like he lives in a cave. Oh, he also has one of these things right here. What is this thing called? A trident. Good. Looks like he's in the underground and I see fire. So I'm thinking this might be Hades. Let's see. Yep. Hades in the underworld on his throne. What about Hades, Zeus's other brother? Now, let's stop and think about that right now. So we have Zeus, who is, let's go back to our chart so we can remember. He's the protector of all on earth, and he's the leader of all gods, and his brother is Hades. And I'm going to go ahead and, while I'm here, write his name. His name is spelled Hades. And it just said that he is whose brother? Zeus's brother. She's having a hard time typing today. All right. So do you think that that's interesting, that Zeus is the ruler of all people and in the sky, and Hades is in the underworld? What do y'all think? And looking at his picture, what kind of god do you think he is? What kind of powers do you think he might have? Turn and tell your parent or whoever's in the room. Letitia, turn and tell your nieces. What kind of power do you think that Hades might have? So what I thought about was, it looks very dark in the picture. He looks very sketch and sneaky, like he's up to something. So I think his powers may not be for good. That's what I was thinking. That was my thoughts. So let's see. Zeus rules the heavens and Poseidon rules the sea. Hades rules the underworld, or the land of the dead. Hades has a helmet that makes him invisible so that no one, friend or foe or enemy, can see him coming. Hades' throne is in the underworld where he lives. All right, stop and think right here. Let's think. Go back to our objective. What in that text that the author just said lets you know that this is fiction? What in that text did the author just say that lets you know this is a fictional character, a fictional story? Listen, I'm going to read it again. Well, Zeus rules the heaven and Poseidon rules the sea. Hades rules the underworld, or the land of the dead. Hades has a helmet. Let's go back and look at it. There it is. Hades has a helmet that makes him invisible so that no one, friend, foe, or enemy, can see him coming. So what I heard was that his helmet makes him invisible. Now, is that something that I could say is evidence that this is a fiction story? Can humans become invisible? No, although it would be really cool, wouldn't it? So that right there, that part of the text tells us that we are continuing to learn about fictional characters, fictional mythology. All right. So also our other thought that we had to stop and think about is what they told us about the God. So he is the ruler of the underworld. Okay. So his helmet makes him invisible. He's the ruler of the underworld, which is the land of the dead. All right. Let's go to the next one. Uh-oh. Are we looking at Greek gods or goddesses now? Yep. So these are goddesses because they are women. So this is Demeter and Hera. So let me, as you scroll down, I'm going to write, her name is spelled D-E-M-E-T-E-R. M-E-T-E-R. And our other one that we're going to talk about is Hera. All right. Again, remember the two things you're listening for. How we know this is fiction, examples from it that tells us it's fiction, and characteristics of the gods. So, well, Cyrus said, Zeus also has a sister who has a throne on Mount Olympus. Demeter is the goddess of harvest and grain. She looks after all the fields and crops on earth. Zeus's wife, Hera, also lives on Mount Olympus. She is the queen of the gods and goddesses and is the goddess of women's lives. Sirius turned and looked at his son. How many is that? Counting on his fingers, Leonidas said, Zeus, Poseidon, Demeter, and Hera. Just 4. Who are the other gods and goddesses that live on Mount Olympus, Father? So we've talked about 4 thus far that live on Mount Olympus. So hold on, let's go back. We also talked about him. Is he counting him? Why not? He's not. We said 4. So here's 1, 2, and then 3, 4. But where does he live? Does he live on Mount Olympus? No, he lives in the underworld, which is why we just counted the 4 who live in Mount Olympus. All right, so let's make sure we got the details of them first. So they said, the author said, Demeter is the goddess of harvest and grain. So she is a goddess of harvest and grain. And we talked about harvesting when we talked about Cesar Chavez. Do you guys remember that? We talked about how they would travel from farm to farm and harvest the crops. So what does harvest mean? If she's the goddess of harvest and grain. Right, she is the goddess of all the food that is grown and picked in the world. All right, harvest and grain and crops. And then we go down to Hera, which is Zeus's wife, ruler of all gods and goddesses. Did we get everything? Let's see. Let's read it again. Hera also lives on Mount Olympus. She is the queen of gods. We forgot that part. The queen of gods and goddesses and rules all of the women's lives. All right. We covered all of those 2 characters. So let's go back to our pictures. So again, which one do you think is Demetria, the queen of harvest and crops and grain? Yep, this one. If you look at the evidence in the picture, you can tell that she is on the soil. She has things growing around her. And then when you look at this one, the queen of gods, Hera, she is in the clouds looking over the land, representing that she is the queen. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, there's a lot here. All right, remember the 2 things you're thinking about as I'm reading. Well, son, there's Hephaestus, god of fire and the blacksmith of the gods, Aphrodite, goddess of love, Athena, goddess of wisdom, and Ares, goddess of war. All right. So we have 4 new characters right here. So this one right here, his name is Hephaestus. He is the god of fire and the blacksmith of the gods. And you can see that he's the blacksmith by what he has in his hand, right? Then we have over here, this is Aphrodite. She is the goddess of love. Then here we have Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom. And here we have Ares, the god of war. So let's make sure we go back to our list here. You might need to add a couple more spaces. So here we go. These names are way crazy, y'all. Hephaestus. He was our first one. He is the god of fire and blacksmith of the gods. Then we had Aphrodite. who is the goddess of love. Let me go down. Willow hush. Then we have Athena. Was Athena a god or a goddess? She was a goddess of wisdom. Let's see. Let me insert another row below. And then we have Aries, the goddess. Nope, not the goddess, my bad. The god of war. All right. So I want you to think about the characteristics here. So we have a god of fire and blacksmith of the gods, and this needs to be capitalized. We have the goddess of love. We have the goddess of wisdom and the god of war. So thinking about those four characteristics, do you think that these are still fictional characters? And why? Turn and tell your partner or your parent or your nieces, your nephews, even a pillow. Turn and tell a pillow. Why do you think these are fiction, or why do you think they're not fiction? Okay, so when I stop and think about it, I could have turned and talked to Willow. That's what I'll do next time. When I stop to think about it, I think about the goddess of love. And I think about, in real life, do humans really have control over love, or even war, the god of war, or the goddess of wisdom? Are those things that, like, as a human, we can have powers over, or we can control other people with? Nope, we cannot. And remember, these are like, they are Leonidas and Cyrus. These are like their religious gods. These are people they go to for all of these things. So like they potentially would pray for a good harvest, and they would pray to, let me go back. Her name was Demeter, the god of harvest and stuff. So if they wanted a good harvest and they wanted things like that, they would pray and talk to her. If they wanted to pray about war, they would talk to Aries. Yep, Aries, who is the god of war. If they wanted to talk to a god about love, they would pray to her, which is Aphrodite, the goddess of love. So remember, these are people that they feel is real because this is part of their religion. But as we're reading the text, we know that in real life, these are not things that as humans, it's not something that we can control, right? We cannot control war. We cannot control love. We cannot control wisdom. While we can play a part in it, we cannot control it in the sense that, like, they are saying they can pray to them and they will make changes and have all these supernatural powers of love and war and wisdom and fire. Okay, let's see. I think we are going to pause right there. That was a lot of characters. I'm going to go back to this in case you missed anything. We were down here. So we talked about Hades today. He's Zeus's brother. His helmet makes him invisible. He's the ruler of the underworld, the land of the dead. We talked about Demeter, who is the goddess of crops and harvest. Hera, who is Zeus's wife, queen of gods. Hephaestus, who is the god of fire, the blacksmith. Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And Athena, goddess of wisdom. And Aries, god of war. So as we continue through this unit, we are going to continue learning more and more about each of these gods. But right now, this is just our rough draft copy of information. So for today's assignment, I want you to write about why are Leonidas and Cyrus traveling to Mount Olympus? Why are Leonidas and Cyrus traveling to Mount Olympus? That's your first question. The second question I have are, which gods or goddesses which gods or goddesses that we have learned about already that Leonidas has told his son is your favorite, and tell me why. Okay, so why are they traveling to Mount Olympus? The first question. The second question is, which god or goddess that Leonidas has talked about so far is your favorite, and tell me why it's your favorite. And I want something like, remember I want those third grade sentences. So if it was my writing, I would say, we have learned about Aphrodite, Athena, Ares, Hades. My favorite god that we've talked about so far, do you see how I made that opening sentence instead of just saying, I could have just said, my favorite is Hades. I said, my favorite god that we've talked about so far, stretching that third grade sentence, is Hades, because his helmet makes him invisible. Don't steal my sentence either. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. Can't wait to see your assignments, and I love each and every one of you so very much. Bye. Maybe. Let's see.